I am overjoyed to be reading with Mary and Nikki. This is such a wonderful lineup, and I am so honored. Thank you so much, Ron, for inviting me to read for Alaska Quarterly Review. It's a journal that I have loved for years and years and been thrilled to be published in several times, and this is just a joy. So I'm going to open with a few poems from my newest book, or what we'll call Desire, and this first one is called Sketch, Charcoal, and Body on Paper. The girls who posed for beginning drawing, insecurity slipped off their shoulders and draped over chairs, knew how to turn themselves into specimens, naked and safe as feathers or bones or the amphibrax of antlers, how to suggest like that wildness and bodies in excess of the bodies we could see. Their faces, when I passed them later in the hall, out of place, too intimate to look at. Afterthoughts of neck and breasts and hips, what I feared of my skin, its proportion, perspective, the way I was always and never really posing, how I wanted that beauty that knew how not to care, let people stare, let them mismeasure, smudge pages with charcoal, erase me. So this poem was published, this next one was published by Alaska Quarterly Review originally, and it's came out of an interdisciplinary arts project I was doing with the Basque Arts Collective, titled Play Like a Girl, that was investigating the insult or expression not to play like a girl. And in the process of thinking about this, I started thinking about a character named Ophelia, who I imagine as the feisty survivor version of the tragic Ophelia, and she appears throughout this book in various contemporary situations. So this is called Ophelia Plays Like a Girl, and again, thanks to AQR for first publishing it. Ophelia plays like a girl because no one tells her not to, not at first. Her hands like high desert clouds, more shadow than rain. She presses the piano's pedal to sustain herself inside her skin, flicker of tomboy on a barbed wire fence, pockets stuffed with bread for invisible horses, their hooves soft notes, dust storms swirling between the bars of music. Every good bird does, fly-spangled buzz of afternoon, empty washes between keys. Her mother in the kitchen, how the mixer sings like Mozart's starling. She read somewhere, he heard it in a pet store cage, whistling his piano concerto in G in perfect time. All cows eat grass. All music is caged inside some body, some motor, some dry wind, rattling the metal on the porch. What more can she be? Two hands scattering seeds. Chord of sunburned and lonely and learning girl with scorpions in the piano's strings. So this poem takes the character of Ophelia again and imagines her in a quite different setting, this time in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. So when I was doing research for this book, I spent a lot of time for other reasons looking at statues around New York, many of them allegorical figures represented by women, so figures like beauty and memory. And I started thinking about how similarly and how objectified all of these figures were represented. And so this imagines Ophelia going through the Metropolitan Museum looking for a statue of anger. It's called Ophelia Looks for Anger at the Metropolitan Museum. When she learned women can be anything, she didn't know they just meant allegory. Evening's one bare breast, sloping like moonlight towards her ribs, or beauty's dress, slipping past her nipples, skin smooth as sweet wine, the soft bloom of columbine when it used to mean a flower, or purity absconded from personality, that rustling hive of body, just winged marble soul now. It's terrifying, like the rapture or a taxidermied cat, all glazy eyes and curves hardened to hold meaning in. How not one will ever flinch or drop her thorn of vice or wear a sweatsuit with sweetie written on the ass to sleep alone. It's hard to argue specifics with a concept, but she wants to say, memory, set the fucking mirror down. Stop gazing all dreamy at how dreams and youth must fade. You're like a Barry Manilow song, each word headed for ruin, like that Dietrich movie where she played a model, but the censors censored all her posing, left the statues, cut blood and flesh and woman, song of songs. She's not a prude, but sometimes you can keep your clothes on, like in this atrium, air conditioned so the art won't spoil. At least Cleopatra, with her handy asp, has attitude, a name you could name something living. Here, Cleo, here, kitten, here, Nydia, blind flower girl of Pompeii. Everyone loves a good martyr. How resigned sorrow had banished her smile, but not her sweetness. How she's nobly groping through rubble, breasts exposed, to mean whatever a woman's body means after a volcano explodes and it's raining hot, invisible ash. So I'll close with two newer poems. This one is a few years old, but part of a series that I'm working on that look at language of American patriotic songs in relation to various contemporary situations, in this case, in part, gun violence. And this draws on language from the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which when I was a child, for several years, I misheard, and I thought the line was not mine eyes have seen the glory, but my knives have seen the glory. So it opens with that. Mine eyes have seen the glory. Admitting I never stopped wanting the misheard line, my knives, those blades graced with handles and sight. About glory, who knew anything in kindergarten? At best, a plastic bucket of chlorine water dumped over my head, apocalyptic, I didn't know the word yet, and baptismal. Atheist child, this was the closest I would get. Pool tiles on cool Texas mornings, the swim teacher shocking us into submission, bravery, freedom, glory, whole countries of abstraction. I only saw with mine eyes, ringing, whinging, stinging water. I mean, with my body and its sudden blindness in the face of. About this country, who gets to dive and rise and who gets trampled like the vintage, I still can't see the justice at 43. Mad Men keep singing on TV. It's all an act. Those children never died for real. New mouths keep mouthing. We are praying for the victims' families. We are praying. This is freedom. We used to sing facing the flag like it could hear us. We used to sing His truth is marching. We once held ice cubes shaped like Texas in a Texas schoolroom where no one shot us. Just water dripping from our fingers. Glory, glory to the playground hippopotamus with its rusting springs we bounced on. Glory to the air a child leaves and then returns to. My knives have seen the pool head first, the concrete, the drain's dark suction, but then the bubbling back, sweet surface breaking. Hallelujah to the desks shaped like desks a child has no reason to dive beneath. The fiery gospels of cinnamon Jolly Ranchers, the trumpets of ice cream cones, then Texas, melting down to clean our fingers. About naivete in 1980, we were all midair, headlong, this country heading where it's gone, as the saying goes, if we don't change direction. My jubilant feet above my head, with you my grace shall deal as I hit the pool water. Let us die, let us die, let us dive to make men free. We used to sing upside down. We used to face the flag like it could see us as we builded him an altar, as he sifted our hearts like playground sand into a bucket. We never asked what if he or he or he loosed the fateful lightning. There were sides, straight as stripes on the flag. We were the future, said Whitney Houston. We were the world, said Michael Jackson. If our eyes got rusty, someone, glory, glory, would polish them, wouldn't they? Until we reflected stars. I've been writing about gun violence for over a decade and co-edited Bullets into Bells of poems about it. And I keep thinking it will become a subject that is not as timely in this country. And then every time I read that, there's just been another mass shooting. I'm going to try to be a little bit more optimistic for my final poem. there's optimism in facing the tragedy too, though, I do believe. But this last poem was actually commissioned by the Inlander in Spokane, which asked a group of writers to write something hopeful for the start of 2021. And I was having a hard time in late December coming up with anything that I was feeling very hopeful about. This was before the vaccine was really, or any of the vaccines were really being rolled out. And obviously it had been quite a dark year for many of us. And I was saved by reading an article about animals in space. So space spiders came to the rescue to restore some optimism. And the article by Elizabeth Dorer, which is called Laika the Dog and the First Animals in Space, provides the epigraph, which is 2 garden spiders named Arabella and Anita were used to study how orbiting Earth would impact spiders' ability to spin webs. Arabella spun a fairly symmetric web, even though the thread thickness varied, something that earthbound spiders don't experience. And reading this, I realized how much I felt like a space spider. So this is titled When, Like Garden Spiders from Space Orbit, We Return. We will weave a web the size of the rose bush all over the rose bush, the way people throw their arms around relatives in airports as if they are trying to attach 1,000 thin silk threads of love plus gravity plus where have you been so long to their feet and shuffly suitcases and knit-capped heads. We will spin knit caps with tassels for everyone out of space dust and our own exhausted bodies. We will not talk about what it felt like to spin up there while we were also spinning. We will not say 8 eyes full of darkness or that long unanchored pulling, like trying to unwrap moonlight from its tight-wrapped spool of moon. So it's no wonder it wavered from us like arcane geometry, thinning and thickening, like we were seeing it from dimensions different than we'd ever thought of. We will say cucumber leaf, pumpkin with its unwinding tethered coils. We will launch from them dirtily, earthily. We will not ask what the point was. We will return like a radio transmission out of the desert when the song reattaches its filaments of breathy voice to music and the rasping of the wind is over, the rasping of space blanking past us. We will crawl back to what we love as if it is earth mist ordinary, as if we are not dizzy still, lank-legged. We will offer what we have always offered, out of everything, most days, fairly symmetric. We will look down, down into the leafy wet of spring or whatever this new season is. Thank you so much. And thank you again to Alaska Quarterly Review for having me as part of this great lineup. I can't wait to hear Mary and Nikki.